Hey everyone, welcome to BRUNO'S MMA show. I am here today with Tim Daly, amateur MMA fighter. Quite a good ranking, if I'm not mistaken. How you doing, Tim?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on today.
Pretty good, thank you. Thank you, very good. So, listen, just to talk a little bit about yourself, because that's the whole idea. I looked up some information about you, and you used to be a basketball player until your dad showed you UFC fights. Is that it?
Yeah, something like that. I played all growing up, and I guess it was like middle schoolish is when I first started seeing like MMA and like UFC, and I was like, wow, like this is amazing, and I wanted to like learn more and obviously watch it all the time, and so throughout this whole time I'm playing basketball, and then he had a buddy and. He had a buddy, and I was like, oh, I need to try this. One of his buddies from high school was a guy named Johnny Curtis, and he was a pro fighter from Virginia. Fought like Brendan Schaub. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him or not, but I went and trained with him some. I got my butt kicked, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And from there, I was like, I'm done. I'm hooked. Even though I play basketball, like all growing
Yeah.
up, I knew like once this was done, once basketball was over, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is amazing.
Yeah. Well, listen, Tim. This is gonna be completely stupid of me, but I have some ideas for you. I've got some ideas, man, because I'm a little older than you, and I remember this in the '90s. There was this arcade game, okay, and it was called Arch Rivals. I don't know if you know about it, and it was this basically this arcade game was basketball, but you could punch the other characters to steal the ball. So I'm just saying, you should just make it an actual sport, or lead in a movie for Arch Rivals, the movie, and you're all set. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, like that would be awesome. That would be ideal, honestly. I mean, that's what all like my thing is like that's what all like confrontation like leads to. Anyway, like all sports, whenever there's like a really like intense like moment or battle, it all leads to a fight. It all like that's like the pinnacle of it. So no matter what, any sport, whether it's hockey or football, it's like any like disagreement or argument always comes to a fight. So with MMA, at least that's the starting point. So you can't really get any higher.
That's okay. You know, that's really interesting that you said that, and we're gonna get to that. But first, I gotta finish my line of like stupid jokes I set up. But it's too bad you weren't born in Florence, because they have this sport called Calcio Storico. I don't know if you've seen on Netflix the show Home Game. And the first episode, you have to be born in Florence to play this. It's basically like MMA meets rugby.
Oh wow.
You haven't seen it?
Oh my. No, I haven't. Oh my gosh, it sounds
Man,
violent.
yeah,
It sounds awesome.
so no gloves, huh? No gloves. So basically, it's kind of like rugby, but everyone just starts fighting. They have like these old school pantaloons from Italy back in the Renaissance or something. I don't know. And they have like these big puffy pantaloons, but you have to be born in Florence to play. And there's like four teams, four different colors. And basically, like they have to throw the ball on the other side, but they just start punching each other, tackling each other. And so you have like the boxers, the wrestlers. Not that it's an official spot in the team, but they each kind of have their specialty that they know of. And it's kind of like, I think the rule is when you go to the ground, you have to stay there though. So some wrestlers will take the other to round, but they can ground and pound. So it's basically like MMA and rugby.
Oh my gosh. So it's like a huge like gang fight almost. It sounds like.
But one of the rules is that you cannot gang up on someone. It's like one on one. It's a
Okay,
big
I
group,
like
but
that.
so if you're like punching with someone else, the other dude doesn't get to come from behind and do a clothesline. Like
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I
And they
like
all go
that.
to the hospital, and
Yeah, exactly. It's like
they
sometimes it's like I don't. Is your boy gonna come up and like? I'd be worried about getting kicked in the head if I'm on the ground. I'd be
yeah.
like, stay away from the ground. I gotta be able to see everywhere around me.
Well, yeah, that's why the wrestlers get to do their thing, because otherwise it wouldn't be viable. And you just reminded me of this. Like, to be all serious, you just reminded me of this video, and I saw it a few months back, and it broke my heart. And it's basically these school kids. I don't know if they were like 12 or something. And one of them was clearly, well, I mean, you never have the beginning of the video, but he seemed to be very much a bully. And the kid getting pushed knew like what I imagined to be Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And he took the other guy to the ground and was controlling him tight control. But then another kid like they had like school uniforms, kicked him in the head,
Yeah.
and the kid was just like kind of like doing the bacon, and they just pull him off, and they're laughing. I was like, what the hell? And that was kind of one of those things. Yeah, um, yeah, don't.
Especially with like jiu-jitsu like that. I mean, jiu-jitsu is obviously great, like
Yeah,
in general, but like once you use jiu-jitsu in a multi-attacker situation, it's like it's a little dicey because you just put yourself, especially if you end up on the ground, in such a vulnerable
yeah,
position. It's so easy for someone to like come up and behind you and kick your head. Like, no shit, well, not for sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's I do combat sambo now, but my grappling started with Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and like at some point we're learning some like self-defense stuff, and I had this. It's kind of almost like you really quickly have these habits put in you. You know, when you do something, and it's kind of funny because in a way the best one-on-one grappling isn't the best self-defense grappling because
Yeah.
some positions are going to really entangle you with the other person and you've got the best hold possible over them, but if
Yeah.
you're in a self-defense situation where there might be other people around, you don't want to entangle too much, so it's kind of like you don't want that grappling to be like too good in the sense that you want to be able to disentangle as well, and that's
Yeah.
anyway
No,
it,
I agree. There's a point where too much, like if you're in too close to proximity or too close to one another, like there's a point where that'll definitely not go in your favor. That's why I don't know. What are your thoughts on like what's the best like self defense? Like if you're gonna pick a couple like things to train, like what would you?
so
What
okay.
would you say?
Yeah. First of all, I want to mention that, like, for example, you would easily kick my ass. I'm not a professional fighter. I'm just a guy who started like in his 30s because I was finding myself defending people too often, very often in subways, and I was like, okay, I gotta learn something because it's gonna end poorly for me if I go around like, I'm a geek. I read comic books and all that stuff, and it was kind of one of those things where when when I read those things, for me, it wasn't just like, oh, look at the awesome costumes. It was kind of like a morality tale, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so when I read those comics growing up, to me, obviously I'm not suicidal, but it was kind of like if you can help someone, do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and as many teenagers, I did like taekwondo, as a teenager and all that. But even back then, I remember like not being interested in points and kicking hard.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting how even back then, like I had this mentality to me. But it's one of those things where I was always interested in martial arts. So I was always like kind of lazy about it. I never like really went for it. And then at some point, it kind of, I don't know if it's like the wisdom of growing older, but you kind of go, okay, if I keep doing this thing, I might as well start to learn some stuff because at some point I had to hold someone down who was going to attack a woman in a subway, and I knew like zero grappling. So and I was just thinking, I hope he doesn't have a knife because at first I was standing over him and I was keeping my foot in his throat, but because of the subway, I was afraid I would really hurt him
Yeah.
because the guy wasn't all there,
Yeah.
by the way. And so I kind of went down with him, but I didn't know what to do. And I was like, I was just hoping, please don't have a knife. And since then, I was like, okay, I gotta learn me some grappling, and
Yeah.
that kind of got into it. And what's kind of funny is you were comparing sports and combat, and um, so I kind of learned martial arts with this very self-defense mindset. I was never a competitor, never interested in sports, and I was like a total geek. And but then it's kind of interesting how since I got into it, even though I'm not into sports, I kind of get it now. It's kind of interesting. Well, I mean, I am into MMA, but it's kind of interesting how, like, when I see team sports now, I get it, and that's funny. That's like something clicked.
Yeah.
Uh, but to answer your question, man, I mean, all that to say, all that long rambling to say that I am not like a martial arts expert in any way, but I really like combat sambo that I'm doing right now. I think MMA slash combat sambo, like combat sambo is MMA with a jacket. So I think MMA is the best. I think MMA is the best, but at the same time, sometimes like some people need kind of like a crash course.
Yeah.
Um, from my experience, because when I started doing some martial arts, I did some Krav Maga, and some of it I liked, some of it a bit less compared to combat sambo. But I think what I liked, what I do think Krav Maga was good if you wanna like do a crash course to someone quickly, if it's a good school, because there are some crappy schools out there. They're just gonna give you like some quick tricks,
Yeah.
which are not like long term viable. Okay, wait. I'm not dissing Krav Maga at all. Like the good schools are good, But what I
Yeah.
mean to say is like, obviously, when you do MMA, I think that's when you really come across all the skills you really, really need long term. But you're not. If I had only 2 weeks to prepare someone to defend themselves, I might actually send them to good Krav Maga schools where they might go like, here are some quick, cheap shots. Here are some quick tricks. Whereas actual MMA long term is, I think, if you add in some knife defense, some gun defense, all those things are really good, but it takes time. You're not like if you do 2 weeks of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, you're not gonna be ready for like someone screaming in your face and shoving you, and you know what I mean. Like it's different.
Absolutely.
Like under pressure, are you gonna do that armbar that you learned last week? Like,
Yeah. Right.
or you learn to block and kick someone in the balls and try to run away.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of where I am on it too. It's like not just one thing. You have like you have your knife aspect, and then you have your gun aspect, and you have like your awareness aspect of your
Yeah,
ongoing around you, and not putting yourself in a vulnerable situation, whether that's like alone on the street or in an empty parking lot, or I mean, but if we're just talking like hand to hand, it's got to be, I'd say, a fair amount of boxing and some jujitsu, probably some wrestling, and MMA. Really, it just
yeah,
I feel like encompasses kind of all of that, and the first things first, if you can, like I'd just say run,
yeah.
run.
But I hate it when people are so smug about it. Oh, just run away. Okay,
Yeah,
look. For example, let's say you attack me. You're much taller than me. I can't run away from you.
yeah,
Not that you would. I'm just giving an example because of the height. But
yeah,
what I mean is like you can't. Or what if you're with someone who can't run away? You're with like this old person who's with you, or you can't always run away. Like I hate it when people do. And also, like if you don't practice, how good is your cardio for running? Really, like all those things. So
yeah,
yeah, runaway is the answer sometimes for sure. And I would like if someone pulls a knife on me, man, and I feel like I can outrun them, and I'm in this open field, for sure I'm running away. But
yeah,
if I see a person, they're like big and lanky, I might actually choose to fight because I'll feel that would be safer than giving my back.
yeah,
Because if I feel like they're gonna outrun me and stab me in the back, there's no point in me giving them my back and running away. So
right,
it's um, context is king. And actually, as we're talking about it, let's say for unarmed fighting, no weapons involved, any of that, I think Muay Thai is pretty good for self defense because um, the clinch. They're going to teach you that standing grappling, if you will, that clinch game, or
hmm
let's way, headbutts. Let's wear
yeah,
Muay Thai. That clinch, I think, is important. Like if someone comes to grab you, most people in a bar or whatever are not going to do a double leg takedown on you, but they're going to try to grab you up here. Like
yeah,
so. Let's wear Muay Thai, I guess. And again, like I think there's a difference between kind of crash coursing someone and then preparing them long term to be the best fighter possible, or two different things. That's
right,
brought up Krav Maga earlier in the sense that if anything for the mentality, and that you were saying like how you react. And I remember at some point before I was actually properly training, I did have to deal with two dudes who were like super tall and buff, were like harassing some women. I got involved like an idiot. And well, not like an idiot, but the thing is that now I kind of look back on it, and I was also kind of looking for a fight because it could have been handled differently. And I didn't like throw a punch or anything, but it's kind of being condescending to them as well. So it's kind of like,
yeah,
you also learn about yourself when you get it out of your system. You realize you were looking for a fight. But um, what's kind of funny is that one of them was talking to me, the other was trying to sneak past behind me, and I kind of went like I pointed at the other guy, hey, don't do it, like laughing, like, don't cheat, don't want to do that, and it kind of throws him. It's stupid, right? It shouldn't have worked, but it worked.
yeah,
And um, and when we do combat sambo knife defense, like sometimes like my training partners will say really messed up stuff at me. It's not just these are the movements. I'm not even gonna repeat the stuff we say to each other, but they might say something along the lines of "I'm gonna gut you like a fish," screaming. So it kind of prepares you mentally for that. Whereas if you only teach the moves to someone, and then like even a trained, like a really good trained boxer, kickboxer, like let's say someone gets in their face, starts screaming at them in a bar this close, and the guy kind of freezes, and then the drunk guy gives him a headbutt or something. Like these kind of like the psychology of it is very ignored. Um,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. Like, if there's a difference in like sparring and drilling and training in the gym, but like unless you know what it feels like to have someone coming forward and trying to like kill you with their hand, like trying to
Yeah.
like take off your head, it's not the same thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's why, especially in MMA, there's so much like I don't know like the word for it, but trash talking on the internet where like you don't know really like what it's like, and it drives me crazy. But it's like, but
Uh,
but because you think that you have some experience that you probably don't have, that it gives you a right to be like, oh well, he should have done this or he should have just stood up, or like unless unless you've been in there and like really know what it feels like to have someone trying to take off your head and you have to either take them out or they take you out, then you don't really know. You know, it's the same thing as what you're saying. It's like, but once you get in there and like once you are in that moment, like unless you have experience, like it's scary for sure.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing that Okay, I'm just gonna say it. F it. I saw the trailer for the new UFC game, UFC 4, and I was like, okay, I have an MMA show. I probably should. I'm kind of late on the news. Like, I kind of like inviting guests, and like as far as the news cycle goes, like I haven't even commented on Whitaker and Till, which like I haven't even seen it yet. It's an awesome fight. I have a new one.
Oh,
Yeah, don't spoil it, even though I know the winner. But but the thing is, like, I'm super late on news. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not the news guy, and if anything, I think other people look, there's bigger channels, so for the news, people will go to them. And I think maybe for me, like I'm like I have guests, and maybe when I have a very personalized take on it.
yeah,
But I did look at the trailer. I was like, I have an MMA show. I should probably look at this video game trailer. Maybe I'll have something to say about it. And I was watching this trailer, and I started having very condescending thoughts. And I'm just gonna say it. And feel free to stay silent if you want on what I'm gonna say. But it was kind of like, oh, this new game, you have this interactive coach, and now you can experience the relationships in the gym and what it feels like to go from this to that. And I was looking at this, and look, I loved back in the day on PlayStation 2, Def Jam, Fight for New York, and all those fight
yeah,
games. I love Mortal Kombat, like, so I'm into fighting games, Street Fighter. I'm into fighting games, but when I do that, it's kind of like, oh, when I button mash, I want to have fun, but that game, what I was looking at was kind of okay. I'm just gonna say it because I already said it twice. I was gonna say it. It was kind of sad. I'm like, you know what? If you want to have those feelings of relationships and all that, go to a gym and train. You don't have to be like a pro fighter. Just go do
yeah,
that. Go to a smoker if you want to do it. And
yeah,
but I'm not bashing someone who wants to do that to play that game. Okay, but what I mean is that at some point, like these games are trying to replace some experiences, and I'm gonna give a totally weird example here, but like I mentioned, I'm a geek. I play Dungeons and Dragons, all those types of games.
okay, cool,
And so obviously, when I play those games, it's kind of fun, it's cathartic because in real life, like let's say my character is fighting a dragon in that fictional world. In real life, I'm not gonna grab like a sword and go find an alligator in the swamp. You know what I mean? Like it's something that I can't actually do. So let's have fun with this.
yeah,
But um, you know, at some point when you watch that UFC 4 game about building up your fire and building your relationships with the other people, like why don't you build yourself up in the gym with other people? You know?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Joe Rogan was just talking about that
Oh, gee,
actually. He was like talking about how video games, like especially for a lot of young kids, like replace
yeah,
human interaction, and like I agree. It's like for so many kids, that's just they kind of equate that to like a personal connection with someone else, and really it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like they can be fun, and that's
yeah,
kind of the draw. Like they'll draw you and suck you in, but
yeah,
at the end of the day, they're not really bettering you. I mean, imagine he made that jujitsu example. Like, imagine instead of like if you played UFC all the time, imagine if you went into like a jujitsu gym and like trained and all those connections you would have, and like all their. I mean, there's so many benefits, but like, I I definitely am with him in the thinking like that would be so much more beneficial to for someone's like overall psyche.
yeah. That did get taken really out of context. I feel like a lot of people are kind of
Yeah.
he even came around to saying like, hey, some people make money with it. They're players. You know, like it's not even like he had this black and white
Yeah.
opinion of it. You know, but I think he's right though. I think he's right in the sense that we all have hobbies and we all have like um how can I put this like it's fine to have hobbies. It's fine to waste time because as human beings we also need to unwind. But the thing is that these video games, the way they are, they require hours and hours, and at some point, it's no longer like this hobby. It's kind of like this is your life for the next 2 weeks or
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah.
And then it kind of becomes, well, I don't know. Let's say someone is complaining like, "Oh, I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have anything going on in my life." And then they go turn on the console and they just like play all week. And like, okay, what did you do that week to find yourself a girlfriend, do something with your friends, or like get in shape, learn a skill, whatever. So it's kind of like I don't diss video games, but I definitely get that. Um, I don't know, man. Just kids. You know, like how when I was a kid, we would all be outside, and our parents had to call us back in.
Yeah.
They were like, "Come back inside," because we're spent all day outside. And now that doesn't happen anymore. Like
Yeah.
kids are okay now. Like putting aside the whole pandemic, kids are always inside, and it's almost like your parents are like, "Don't you want to go out for a while?" Like, no, I don't want to. You know, like it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, that between video games and social media and I mean, kids these days are growing up in the craziest times, and I think they just face so many challenges that are different than like we had a good really, but
yeah,
like between cyberbullying and I mean, there's a whole nother world where they can like create stuff and talk to people in between YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. It's really like I feel like some kids need a crash course in kind of like how to handle it. Or I mean, it can be overwhelming. It's overwhelming for me. Sometimes I find myself like just wasting, like you're saying, wasting time like on Instagram or other social media. It's the same thing as really playing video games, but
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just easy to just mindlessly scroll and kind of unwind and see what everyone else is doing. And then before you know it, an hour is gone and you're like, whoa, like what could I have been doing to better myself for that hour?
And obviously, you and I are on Instagram. We met there, and I do look at what's going on because I kind of use Instagram as a tool for my show, like to get in
Yeah.
touch with people, see what's going on. But one thing I noticed after being on Instagram for a while is when I would pick up a book, because Instagram programs you to have like a whole story in a second. You like it or you don't, you move on, or maybe you comment, but it's kind of like entertainment by seconds. So
Yeah.
your brain becomes very like, oh, this is the whole story. Oh, this is the whole story. Boom, boom, boom. And then I picked up a book the other week, and I was like, why am I having so much trouble like getting through a paragraph and without forgetting what I just read?
Mm-hmm.
So some of those things were like I made it a point now that I still use Instagram because it allows me to be in touch with kind of what I do with the show. But
Yeah.
um, if I have to relax, I don't relax with Instagram. I relax with a book. Or I pay more attention to what's going on. Like it's just and even when everything goes back to normal and even when I'm in crowds and all that, I'm making it a point to I won't be listening to music anymore. I'll be just it might be a bit boring, or I might just like be with my own thoughts again. Like
Yeah.
instead of listening to podcasts and music all the time and always being like in other people's thoughts as well. There's a time for podcasts. I love them.
Yeah.
I have my show, but certainly there's a time to be with your own thoughts. There's a time to concentrate on something for a long time, like a single book, and not be like going left and right.
Yeah.
Um, and you're talking about like kids growing up, and I have a newborn, and I've been thinking about that because like even stuff like, for example, let's say you want to talk to your son about the bees and the flowers, like, well, they're probably going to find out some really weird stuff way before they're ready now these days. They're You can try to stop it, but it's probably going to fail, like, and it's not like just even normal stuff that you can kind of be like, well, you shouldn't have seen this, but it's what it is. No, it's some stuff can be really weird.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. The internet is a crazy, crazy place, and I don't know. If I had kids, I wouldn't want them to be all over that and seeing the ins and outs of the internet too.
I have this thought that, okay, cell phone for emergencies, maybe not a smartphone until you reach a certain age, but there's going to be other kids with smartphones. The thing, you can try, you can do your best, but it is what it is, I guess. I, but it has to be addressed. Like, I don't think parents should, like, do the ostrich thing where it's kind of like just try to keep their kids in a bubble and ignore everything going on around. That doesn't work. So you have to kind of also address it if it happens. Like, if they see
Yeah.
stuff they shouldn't have seen, sit down and discuss it, because you have no choice now. They've seen it. Like, don't
Yeah.
just go like, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of kids. I think when you close them off to that, they become more curious, and then that in turn leads them to like wanting to find out whatever. It can be anything, but like when you don't allow them to go kind of experience and see things, like they want to learn, they want to see what all their friends are doing or what all their friends are like talking about. And so I think if you just enclose them in, that's just going to drive them to want to do create your stuff.
Yeah, it's you don't want to overprotect either. I think you just, like, I don't know. I think, when it comes to it, you just give the kid the tools you can to deal with stuff, and even if it's new stuff that you didn't plan for, if you give them tools to know who they are and to deal with the world. And you were talking about cyberbullying and stuff like that. Like, also, you gotta detach from stuff. When I think the healthiest attitude when it comes to those things, like, if a person is not in front of you telling you, how much value does it really have? You know what I mean? Like, someone just, you don't even know who's writing that. Like, it's just like all those things where, anyway.
Yeah, like Instagram like isn't real life. I think people
No.
forget that. And like
Oh,
no one really posts a picture of them like broken down and crying in their room from depression, a bad day, whatever. And so it's like everyone's kind of gonna put their best foot forward, understandably so. But it also it turns into like a contest, like everyone showing each other how happy and how great their life is,
yeah.
and then it just becomes a back and forth, and they all want to have the most followers and the most likes, and so I mean, it's just a slippery slope.
Yeah, and it's so funny how, regarding fighters, I read comments sometimes, like, I shouldn't even go into comments, like, and I go check them out, and it's almost like, it's funny because then you'll see, like, someone comment like, oh, this person, their guard wasn't up when that happened. Like, yeah, okay, like, so we're talking in round 5 when they're exhausted, they had like punches to the head, and their technique wasn't perfect in that moment, and I think they feel like because they picked up on it, they feel like superior in some way.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I don't know, like, if you're doing any training at your gym in front of your bag or whatever, like some light sparring with your friends for a few minutes, like, yeah, maybe you keep your guard up the whole time, but then round 5 of a championship, like, if I, like, all those things where they all, like, it's just like it's like they get this power from telling someone who kicked their ass so bad in real life, but they get this, like, thrill of criticizing, and they think that the ability to see that criticism, whether they're right or wrong or whatever, because even in a case where they're right about that specific little detail, like, you wouldn't be that guy in a fight. Stop it.
Right.
Like, what do you think you're doing? Like, and they're often private profiles, of course. It's never like someone's actual profile. There's never a video of them hitting the punching bag or something. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's like Mike Tyson once said something like the internet has made like people comfortable with saying stuff that would get them punched in the face, and like I'm totally with him. Like, it's so easy for these keyboard warriors to like hide behind a fake profile and say stupid, like sometimes like just racist stuff, and it like just like the low hanging fruit. I'm like are like you must have so low self-esteem. Like, I just
yeah,
feel bad for you. And like, and not only that, but like with I think MMA is a little different because like with basketball and football, those sports I feel like are a lot more accessible to kids these days, and anyone can go grab a basketball and go play at the park and shoot hoops, and anyone can go grab a buddy and throw the football, run around. But in MMA, like, you can't really recreate that like as easily. Like the whole fight, and I think because people can't really like because they can't really recreate that, they're kind of like, one, they're curious, but two, like they want to they want to be they want to learn more, and they want to I just kind of lost my train of thought, but they want to show others that they know too. And it's kind of like
Yeah,
posture, really.
yeah, yeah.
Like they want to posture like they're an alpha, or like they know how to fight, or something like that. So you see a lot of posturing on the internet, of course, but like
Yeah.
in the MMA world, it's just so prevalent.
But I think even that even bleeds into real life, because I have an anecdote, and I actually told a very short version of it in my episode with Rob from McDojo. So even in real life, it's like some younger men now. I notice. I sound so old when I say that, and I'm generalizing for sure, but there's a lot of younger men who, obviously, people who you see they don't train, like either really skinny or, well, in some way really out of shape, whatever. Um, where it's kind of like they think that the way they've been doing things online is the way things work,
Mm-hmm.
and they're, because the law is also a lot harsher now. Like if two men have a fist fight these days, they're going to jail. It's
Yeah,
not just, the cops are not gonna be like, guys, like don't do that, go home.
yeah,
They're taking them to jail. Like there's consequences to getting in fights, or maybe in the past, if I'm gonna go with the stereotype of the old times, like maybe some guys have a disagreement, they're not even trained fighters, they give a few punches in each other's face, and they're like everyone comes down or something. I don't know, but not a good idea in any case. I don't mean to say that, but what I mean to say is like the environment has become very safe, generally speaking, and most people are not going to throw down over word, and they're
yeah,
very aware of it. And at some point, it's kind of interesting because I'm a lot into body language and seeing how people react. And from body language, you understand what they're actually comprehending. No matter what they're saying, you can see what the thought is behind the words as well.
yeah,
And I was I was in a subway with my pregnant fiance at the time. She was pregnant, and this guy had like inside the subway the backpack on, like this big thick backpack, and he turns around, and he bumps her. So I go, excuse me, I just pushed the backpack, but it's not like I shoved him. I'm just like moving the backpack away from
yeah,
her. And the guy was like, but so like mad, and through his glasses, like calling me like a psycho. "Oh, what's you freak?" And I was like, "Is he really telling me this right now?" And I was kind of processing it, and I could see like what's the problem? Like, well, you just bumped into my fiance. She said, "Well, is she gonna die?" I'm like, and I could see as he was insulting me and all that. Like I could tell in this guy's mind, there was never a moment in which it was possible that I would just do something to him. Like
yeah,
and for me, the thing is that there's different kinds of people out there. There's all people, they're not gonna fight because they're afraid to fight. In my case, if I'm not fighting, it's either because I morally know it's not worth it, or I don't want to get in trouble legally. Like it's not because I'm afraid to actually do it. So I'm looking at this guy, and I was like, this guy does not comprehend what he's doing. Like
yeah,
he was just kind of shaking. And then what happened is, to me, once you've kind of acted that way, I think, okay, this is an unpredictable person. So what happened the rest of the ride is I was looking directly in his way because I wanted to keep an eye on him, and then he was real uncomfortable for the rest of the way. It was starting to sink in.
yeah,
It wasn't just words. Like, well, it was in his case, but he didn't understand that that could lead to other stuff.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I think that behavior does happen. And you're getting commenters. Like a lot of men will never. They're not self-aware. They don't understand who they are. And what I mean by that is there's many years ago, again, subway. I don't know what it is about subways. Um, like so, there's the ramp in the metro. There's like
yeah,
three. It's like divided in three different holds you can have. So instead of having a single pole, what everyone's kind of like, there's three different
yeah,
ones with the express purpose that more people are going to be able to hold on to it.
yeah,
And this dude was holding across the one in front of him, like he was holding the other one across, and his
uh,
fist was at the level of a woman's face, was very short, like this old lady. And I'm looking at that, and I actually told him, man, dude, like hold on to the one in front of you,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know. And he's like, what does it matter? And I actually showed him, and it wasn't even meant to be a threat. I was just being anal and trying to explain to him in some way. And I go, I didn't do a fist in front of his face. I just did this, like, look how it feels like. And I did this in front of his face. Like, it's not pleasant. You have, like, grab onto your own hole, you know?
Yeah.
And the guy did it, but then I kind of knew that this guy's gonna try something after, but not to my face. And
Yeah.
so the crowd comes, it kind of separates us for a bit, and then when I was walking out of the metro at my station, I looked over my shoulder, and the guy was actually gonna push me, but as soon as I looked at him, he stopped.
Oh, no way. Really?
Yeah, like he was gonna wait for me to be stepping out so he could push me, and the doors were closed, and he would feel like, oh yeah, I shoved him for what he did. But once he was sure that I couldn't do anything back to him, but then I looked over my shoulder, and his hand froze.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you live in New York, or where are you based out of?
And I live in Montreal. Like, we have the
Okay.
reputation. Canada has this reputation of being polite and all that, but let me tell you, something is really disappointing. I wish we were, because
Yeah.
being such a polite dude, and to me, it's kind of like when like I just hate to see that sort of like people not being mindful. Like, it just gets me.
Yeah. No, same. It's entitlement. It really is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that what's cool about competitors and just people who train for self-defense or whatnot is like they're some of the most respectful, polite people. They don't have anything to prove, and like those people are always just seemed like salt of the earth. I mean, like the saying goes, it's like big dogs don't bark or something. Like the loudest one, the ones that's like so super aggressive, like you're talking about, like in the subway. It's like they're so fearful to get into a physical confrontation. They're so like nervous and scared for the possible outcomes that they have to really like puff their chest out and kind of fake and hope that like you don't call their bluff.
Yeah.
And so like that is, I mean, it goes back to like self-esteem and social media and those other things that we talked about don't really help that a whole lot, but it is
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what happened with the story I mentioned earlier with the two buff dudes. Like, they really were like way bigger than me. I'm pretty sure I would have been in trouble if they actually went for it. But just because they went, hey, I saw you, don't try. Like, these guys, what they did was they would just, because they were shirtless when they were intimidating. So those guys, I could tell that they didn't train any martial arts, they just took off their shirts and they looked good. So they thought they were tough because of that.
yeah.
And back then I wasn't training seriously, but I still had some experience, and the guy tried to sucker punch me and just blocked, and I tried to kick him between the legs, but I was drunk and I was wearing jeans, so it was like an inside kick inside the leg instead, and even that made him go, like, he just like run away from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of like that guy thought that because he was lifting all those weights, and that helps, by the way. Being fit helps in a fight. I'm not saying otherwise. But what I mean is, like, just being fit is not being tough. They're two different things. But it's almost like whatever makes a lot of men are not self-aware. So whatever makes them feel tough without having to do something tough, they'll go for it. Like the guy, if he pushes me before I get out, he's actually not self-aware that he's waiting for me to not be able to respond. But the story in his mind afterwards is like, I pushed him for what he said.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
guys who lift and they only just do that. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying people who just lift and don't train martial arts cannot be tough, or I'm not dissing them. I just mean there's people in that circle, in that environment, who lift to feel tougher, but they don't actually do something that would make them tough guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mm.
agree. I think people, especially these days, equate lifting and physical prowess with uh, a capability of violence, and that's just not the case. I mean, I see it all the time, just like a stereotype. Like, people think like if you showed random Joe Schmoes like what a UFC fighter look like, they would think it's some jacked up, like shredded dude, and it's not like 99% of the time. Like, those
Well,
guys are gonna
it
get
can be.
tired.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it can
it
be.
can be. It
Yeah.
can be, but most of the time, no. But it's like they're gonna get tired so fast, and like they just equate like physical appearance with like ability to be violent, and they're just it's just not the same thing at all.
No, and what was interesting about that guy is after I kicked him, because I was kind of busy with the other guy, not again not fighting, but kind of like eyeing him, and he went to butter one of the girls again. The girl tried to string, and he kicked her.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing: tries to punch me. I block. I kick him.
Yeah.
His response is to run away, and then to go kick a woman.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, then I kind of started running after him,
Yeah.
but well, he got in his own trouble because he was running, and he like I didn't have to do anything else. He just ran without looking at where he was going. So um, he's alive, but crossed the street without looking. Let's say, and I was kind of okay. You know what? I don't need to do more here. Uh, but but it was kind of like it was interesting to me. Like I just see like to me this idea of men doing combat sports being like jocks and bullies. I find the opposite to be true. I find that men who don't do that sort of stuff are not even aware of who they are. They're gonna do really weird stuff sometimes. So I don't know, man. It's just like it's kind of weird how a lot of men will try to find shortcuts to feeling tough, whether self delusion, doing something else that gives them the perception to themselves and to others that they're tough, like anything but actually doing the stuff that would make them tougher.
Yeah. Yeah. And like kind of what you're saying, like it takes if there's like a threat or if there's some sort of bad person, like it takes a good person that's like more skilled at violence to like neutralize that. So like, and I think that's in a way what masculinity is. Sometimes I feel like that's kind of under attack, like
Yeah.
in today's world. But like it, I think having that capability is not a bad thing in the
Oh,
slightest. I mean, you obviously have to have complete control over that, and but like to have that in like your arsenal, so to speak, is so important because like you're saying, like there, I mean, especially out in public, the world is a very, I guess, volatile place at the moment. But like there are so many
ah,
so many
yeah.
like situations and places like that that good people are needed to stop like bad people or people that are trying to do harm.
You know what's pissing me off about lately? It's one of those things. Some people who don't keep their distance, they're not careful and all that. And by telling them, you have the potential of having them linger around longer. So it doesn't matter whether you could win in a fight against them or not. You just don't want them to linger around.
Yeah.
So people who are kind of disrespectful of those things, it's almost like if you're with vulnerable people with you, and it's just like it gives people that sort of power. So I find like a lot of people are acting tougher just when they kind of see in the body language of others, like who is kind of like, man, we're trying to keep the distance because we have vulnerable people here with us, and they kind of play with that. And they feel tougher, and it's like this cheap shortcut again. It's like these shortcuts for insecure men. But I totally agree with you. That was something. Again, I was talking to the jiu-jitsu grandma in the other episode, and I was saying that I think I agree. Masculinity is very often confused with toxic masculinity, but it's not the same thing. Like masculinity is not toxic inherently, and even the term toxic masculinity, I understand what it means. It's not the term I would necessarily use, but it's shorthand. Everyone knows what it means, so I even use it, even though I don't like it per se. But
Yeah.
everyone knows what you mean when you say that, so it's like
Yeah.
okay. But I do think that it's important to kind of instill this idea that look, actual um, healthy masculinity is the answer to toxic masculinity. Like
Yeah.
this sheltered guy who is afraid of confrontation and afraid of like even speaking too loud and all that. Oh, he's not toxic. No, he's not. But is he the guy who's going to stand up to the douchebag?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. 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 Like there has to be good people to stop the bad ones, and
Yeah.
like, I would agree. Like toxic masculinity is like I think most people are talking about like those like meatheads that are like going around trying to like one up everybody, but I mean at some point like those people are needed, I think, for many reasons. But one of the biggest is like they help protect us. They protect us at home and they protect us like overseas and like so it is important, and I think that's why it's so important to have like positive role models and like especially male role models for like young boys at least.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot like they can find those a lot of times in like a jujitsu school or something like that. So I mean, I think it all kind of ties together.
Yeah, for sure. I think these days a lot of men confuse things and they think that them doing anything remotely old school masculine would make them kind of like something negative. It's kind of like no, it doesn't. And I want to be clear. Like, look, if someone is into like everyone gets to be who they are, and that's fine. Like
Yeah,
I don't need all of my friends to be the same as me. I have friends who I wouldn't consider very masculine, and that's perfectly fine. That's fine. Everyone is who they are, but that's exactly my point. Some people out there are the kind of people who, if something not fair is going on, they're gonna stand up.
yeah,
And the thing is, society these days, modern society, kind of looks that it happened to me like at my work, and people kind of like, why do you do that, man? Why do you get punched in the head, and why do you like choke people? It's kind of weird. And but then anytime one of them has this story where something happens, they see something that's scary, it's like, oh, interestingly enough, that the first person they come talk to is me that day. They go, oh, I wish you had been there the other day. And I'm like,
yeah,
well, what does that tell you?
yeah, exactly. That's like going back to like our like MMA is so useful for self defense debate. It's like that's why I appreciate MMA. It's like I mean I enjoy watching boxing, I enjoy watching like kickboxing, but like for me, MMA is like the pinnacle of combat. That's why it is to me just so amazing. It's like those are the top people in the world, and you take like a boxer and like even a high level boxer, I think like would have an issue with like a good wrestler, like but these MMA guys and gals, they can just do it all, and so like I think that's kind of why it takes so long to get to that level. I mean, you see these top guys have been doing this for like 10 years, um, but I think that's why it's like they're just the best. They're best, and they have to be good in each different discipline, in jiu-jitsu, wrestling, everything,
Yeah.
cage work, and so I don't know. That's why I kind of it's what initially I think drew me to that is because they're better than all these other individual sports.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, you just made me think of something, and I never brought it up in the show before, but when people complain about the grappling, and the obvious answer is, well, go watch boxing, go watch kickboxing, Muay Thai, Letway, whatever, like, go watch something else then. But I think
Yeah,
that people don't wanna because deep down they know it's one of those things where the champion in MMA is the toughest guy around. Not in this sport, he's the toughest guy around.
yeah,
Like so that's what it means. So that draws people. That makes people drawn to that. So I think a lot of people are kind of have this very superficial reason to like MMA, but
mm,
then they want it to fit their terms of entertainment.
yeah, yeah,
And I know you happen to be an entertaining fighter, so you're fan friendly, if you will. I've seen like the way you fight is fan friendly, but what I mean to say is that's how you fight. That just happens to be your style. Other people have styles that are less fan friendly, but the thing is that so it's not really your problem, I guess, in the sense that you have a fan friendly style. But what I notice is a lot of people complain about the grappling sometimes or how the fight happened because they kind of have it both ways. They kind of want to watch the toughest guy around, but they also want to fit
mm-hmm.
their notion of entertainment. If you tell them to go see boxing or kickboxing, it's like they might not be aware of why they don't want to do it, but it's like they know that those guys wouldn't necessarily win in an MMA fight.
Nope.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a couple things. I think it's hard for people to really appreciate the grappling. Like when I watch and I see people like grappling against the cage and people are like booing, I'm like, you have no idea how hard it is what they're
Yeah,
doing. Like when someone gets taken down and like gets back up to their feet, I'm like, you don't know how hard that is to do
yeah,
in fight. And like I think too, it's like you look at Khabib and like Khabib mauls people on the ground,
yeah.
and he's such a great wrestler. So I don't think like really people have a problem with like grappling. I think where people um I think where people like go awry is kind of like with someone who won't take chances. I think
Mhm.
like did you watch the Kamaru Usman
I knew that
Masvidal?
was coming, man. I knew that was coming. Yes, yes, I did, and it was a boring fight. I don't blame Kamaru, but it was totally a boring fight. Yes,
Yeah,
and I like
yeah,
I love wrestling and like grappling, jiu-jitsu, sambo. I love it, but that was a boring fight, and that
yeah,
happens sometimes. Yeah,
yeah. It does. Like on one hand, you gotta appreciate Kamaru being able to like really neutralize Masvidal, who can wrestle his butt
yeah,
off. By the way,
yeah.
who's a great wrestler and was totally underrated going into that. But like, so you gotta be able to appreciate that. But on the second hand, it's like even myself, like I was looking for him to
Yeah,
take some more chances, not
yeah,
necessarily like throw bombs with them, just like
yeah.
strike, elbow, then go back in for a takedown. Like that's where I was kind of like, okay, like he had this huge platform here to really like make himself a household name. He's beat a bunch of really tough guys, like, and he's fought everybody, and he's really like smoked everyone. And but he's still not at like that star level. And I was like, well, this is his opportunity. He doesn't necessarily have to take him out, but
Hmm.
he can show that he's more consistently exciting, then I think like that would have really taken him to the next level. I get it's different though, because when you're a champion, like, and you're making champion money, I'm like,
Yeah,
you fight to win. You don't fight to entertain, and those are two different things.
yeah,
So it's like you fight to retain the belt so you can get another championship level fight, all the sponsors, all the social media ads, all the money, all the pay-per-view buys that go along with that. And so it's like, yeah, I don't blame him, but I'm also not in his shoes and don't have that much on the line. But I overall, like, I thought there were some moments in there where he could have really at least like opened up just for a second or two and taken some chances. But then again, like you do that, that's when Masvidal shines. So
yeah, yeah. I think. Well, here's something. I agree with all of what you said. And I also want to bring up real quick Adesanya Romero. That was striking, and it was also boring. So it's not a matter of striking or grappling. It's just sometimes fights can be boring. It can happen. It can totally happen. Like the way the styles meet, the way the fighters meet, the intention of each, it can happen. And one thing I'll say though, you know what? I've been thinking about it, and I don't know if it hurt Kamaru Usman in the sense that when people go see a Floyd Mayweather fight,
yeah,
what were they hoping for?
yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, he's got great defense and he's a counter
Yeah,
puncher. Gonna let
yeah,
you come forward. And so it's like, yeah, I think some of it is the show. I think boxing does that very well, where they are so like the walkouts, for example, like a Tyson Fury walkout is like going to a concert or a show. Like it's so amazing and it's so like theatrical, and I feel like that's I don't know if I would like that for MMA, but I feel like just I I have a hard time putting them in the same category.
man. One
Obviously,
championship does it.
what's that?
One championship. Their
Yeah,
intros are amazing. I love it.
yeah, and that's great. I think anytime you have more competition, I mean, not just in MMA but in life, really. I think that is gonna make it better for. I mean, in MMA aspect, the fighters for one, they have more options. Like the UFC is gonna be forced to like pay them more. Pay is a whole separate issue, but
Yeah.
like anytime the consumer, I guess, which is like the fighter in this case, has more options, I think it's just a win-win.
But regarding when I brought up Floyd Mayweather, what I mean is that a lot of people hated him, so they would watch his fights hoping someone would knock him out. So Kamaru Usman, I've been thinking about it. I think in some way, yeah, he didn't become a fan favorite. But if enough people were angry at the performance,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
might be like, oh, maybe this guy will knock him out next. You know, they might like actually start watching his fights and then ranting about what a boring fighter he is. You know, but the guy keeps getting. So it
Yeah.
might have, long term we'll see, because I was thinking about it and so many people were talking about, oh, that was such a boring fight, that I'm like, is that really bad for him though? Is that
Yeah.
bad? Because he got the win, and a lot of people are talking about him. And in fights, it's either the heel or the face. And
Yeah.
you know, like you being the heel or the face is almost independent of your actual morals. It's more like how fan friendly you are or something. And yeah, it's just like he might have actually, in some weird way, helped himself, because the worst he could have done is not be memorable, but he kind of was.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, like fight main event on Fight Island, like the stage is set, and I mean, personally, I've met him. Like I've trained with him before, and he's so good and so strong, and like even though he fights at 170, like you think this dude's 250 pounds. His grip strength is out of this world. But like personally, more I mean, I was just rooting for him in the sense like I really wanted to see him like kind of up his stock a little bit and kind of
Uh,
take himself to that next like threshold of guys.
it's kind of a shame in a way, because if you watch his previous fight, that was insane. Like
Yeah,
Colby.
Cole Covington. Yeah,
But you know what? The thing about Kamaru Usman is, like, as good as he is, uh, I'm gonna criticize one aspect, is that he doesn't seem to capitalize on those marketing moments, if you will. What I mean by that is that against Colby Covington, like, come on, man, like Colby was such a perfect bad guy. Um, he could have really capitalized on that, and
yeah,
somehow he didn't. And then with Masvidal, like, there was so much to do with that, and at least if not in the fight itself, kind of like in the build up. But I don't know, like Kamaru Usman, it's always like you feel like there's this little public image thing missing. He
yeah,
has the looks. He wins. He
yeah,
is an amazing athlete, and like, like, so you, and he, there's nothing he does that would make people go, that guy is a bad guy. You know what I mean? Like, so there's, I don't know what it is. Even I cannot put my finger on it, because that guy
yeah,
should by all means be a star.
yeah. Right.
Um, but
Yeah,
that
he has
doesn't
the
help.
total making of a star, like you're saying. Like he kind of checks all the boxes, and I think that's kind of what makes like the people that are like Connor, for example. I don't like using that example, but like the people that are so good on the mic, right? I
Uh,
kind of helps you like I don't know. It makes you realize how special they are to like be able to sell the fight in a way. And like I don't think like Kamaru like I don't know if I was gonna advise him what I'd tell him to do differently because like he does like he talked trash to Colby. He like kind of which I liked. He talked trash to Tyron Woodley, and so like I'm not really offering up an answer here, but like I just really want to see him like succeed and do well and like he's a good guy like he's a family man, has a daughter, like
yeah.
and he's like he's freaking shredded and like he wins and like I don't know. I want to see him in GSP selfishly, but I don't think that'll ever happen.
I'm excited about the prospect of Khabib and GSP. I know that's a hell of a weight cut, but I'm actually excited for that one. So I don't think GSP has a lot of fights left. It's probably
Yeah,
just that one. So I actually want to see that, just because of the mystique of the undefeated fighter against the arguable GOAT of all time. Like. But I also get why Kamaru Usman and GSP would be an amazing fight, because they have the same. No, not the same. Sorry, they have a similar style in many ways.
yeah,
Yeah, I think Kamaru Usman. The thing is, he's so. If I had to take a guess, which I may be completely off here, he's so calculated and calm that in a way, it kind of removes that passion. I think for some viewers, like
yeah,
you mentioned McGregor, and I'm not the biggest fan of the guy either. But the thing is that no one can deny the charisma that he exudes, and so what does he have? He's passionate. Like when he talks about something, he's really into it. And
Yeah.
I think Kamaru, in his own way, it's kind of like Kamaru talks as if he was doing a podcast where he has to be measured and thoughtful, but that's not what sells fights.
Yeah. Yeah. That passion, kind of like that X factor like you're talking about, is so key. That's why I think like Sean, like for example, Sean O'Malley, it's like he has that passion too when he talks, and like
Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily matter what he says, but because he's saying it so passionately and because it really sounds like he believes it, people are gonna latch onto that, and I think that's something like I think not just like people fighting, but I think anyone in anything can really take advantage of is if you have like passion and really speak kind of like speak it into existence like people are going to latch on to that and people are going to want to like follow that.
for example, what did he say about Colby? Do you remember any? Because the thing is, I'm not a fan of Colby Covington. I don't like him, but
Yeah.
I remember stuff he said in the lead to Kamaru's fight. But I don't remember what Kamaru said.
Yeah, right. I think Kamaru just kind of got overshadowed there. And I mean, I think he called him like trailer trash or something like that, but like I what I think about is that fight and I was like that was an amazing fight.
Yes.
Those two left it all out there. And Colby's one of the best in the world, and he had Kamaru really hurt. And like I know he's taking some time off now. He's kind of got a new team, but like I I I thought Colby was going to win that fight before the fight. Like I predicted him to win and for him to become champion. But like going into the fifth round, I was like, okay, it's 2-2 now. I like it's all comes down to this, and like Kamaru just rose to the top and kind of put it on him. I don't know, the stoppage was a little iffy for me, but like I was like, wow, that's just a heart of a champion right there.
Yeah. No, I understand for the stoppage, but at the same time, I think at some point, like fighters have to understand, it's not a death match; it's still a sport. And if you put yourself in that situation, like be ready for the stoppage. Like like if well, you don't put yourself there. That's a bad choice of words, but
Yeah,
if you're in that situation, it's kind of like it's not a death match. Be aware of that. Like the ref, even if you would have survived through his punches and maybe done something after, the ref is not going to let that happen. So I
yeah,
think uh, but like it's kind of one of those things where I don't mean to say like, oh, don't leave it to decision as if anyone made that choice. Like, but
yeah,
it's just I think it has to be accepted about the sport. In
yeah,
boxing, athletes understand that. They understand that if the cut is too bad, man, that's it. It got stopped, and it doesn't mean they're happy about it, but they kind of like accept it more in a weird way. And I think that this whole, to be honest, this whole like complain the stoppage thing in MMA is starting to stress me out because people are complaining when it's too short, but then when it goes too long, they go like, "What do you?" And you know what? If I'm gonna say it, and I know that a lot of professional fighters would disagree with me strongly because that's who they are. I don't know what you're taking it on it is, but me, I'm gonna go with like, you know what? Let's err on the side that doesn't get someone killed eventually. So if you're in this bad spot and you're just getting punched and look, maybe you can be punched for a whole minute straight, and the end of the round arrives, and you can fight for the next round. But we shouldn't have to find out. That's my opinion. And
yeah,
I understand it's a touchy subject for fighters like you, but to me, it's like we don't want someone getting punched for a minute straight without any answer. That's
yeah.
fake.
Yeah, it's for sure a balance, and I think that's why the ref plays such a important role in that. You really have to trust and have really knowledgeable refs and judges, really. But I think I feel like there has to be a happy medium because in my eyes, if I was to get dropped or something, I
Yeah,
want to have an opportunity to improve my position or defend intelligently.
yeah,
And when I feel like most fighters feel like they haven't at least gotten that opportunity, I feel like like that's where they start to feel like they get a raw deal. I mean they're obviously yeah you have to protect the fighter and like that's the ref's job. The ref's got such a horrible job, not
yeah.
horrible but such a tough job. I mean
It's
to
horrible.
be to be yeah to like see that in real time and have to make that split second decision
Yeah,
while you're right on top of them and while you might not have the best view of what's going on, you can't see his eyes, you can't see his face. Like you may have to like go around to the other side to see. It's like they really got it. They really got it rough, and I think like I obviously don't want to see anyone like get hurt, but I think too. I think from a fighter's perspective, like they know what they're getting into, and I think the pain of them wondering
Mm-hmm.
what might have happened if they had the chance to improve the position is worse than the pain of it being stopped, or the pain of it not being stopped. Those
Yeah.
couple punches, you know.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised you're saying this because you're a fighter, and me, my reason for training was later in life, and it's more for practical purposes. Now I love it, but that was
Yeah,
the way I started. So I wasn't a competitor, so I understand what you're saying.
yeah,
Me, the thing is that it's kind of like I feel like I have to choose a side. Like I get you. In a perfect world, that middle ground is the one that always comes up, but
yeah,
and there's cases where for sure you can go, that was an early stoppage. For sure. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. Like the only thing where if I have to take a side, it's almost like there's not going to be that perfect middle ground. It's
yeah,
not going to exist because of the reasons you said.
yeah,
And I'm not trying to convert it to my side. I understand we have different mentalities. We have to, you know, but in any case, for me, it's kind of like, look, if you're going to make a mistake, if you're going to F up in a way that the guy can come back for another fight. That's
yeah,
almost like my, because it's not like someone is protecting their house from an invader. Like it's
yeah,
still a sport, and
yeah,
I get it. It's a livelihood, but again, like a fighter who for an early stoppage, I noticed that very often the public image of a fighter is not overly penalized. So
yeah,
unless something like the guy had an undefeated record and it took something away from him, uh, I feel like when fans know it was an early stoppage, that fighter, like for example, Volkanovski and Holloway, is anyone like some people are, but are most people saying that Volkanovski beat Holloway twice?
No, I don't think. I think Max got the last one easy. I
Yeah.
think he won the last fight easy.
Yeah. Therefore, I do think that there's such a thing as how much are you losing for what you're getting in return?
Yeah,
And what I mean by that is, let's say that the ref is like, oh, he might improve his position, and then the guy just eats some shots that. And again, I just want to clarify myself. I'm not trying to convince you here, but it's just one of those things. That, to me, from the outside, of course, so easy
yeah,
to have that opinion from the outside. Is that okay? Maybe next fight is not the same anymore. Whereas that gets
yeah,
stopped, and the guy's like, I could have gone out of there. I knew it. The ref didn't, but I knew it. And fans might go like, you know what? He could have gone it out of there. Well, like he's gonna get another fight. Oh yeah, I forgot one thing though, the win bonus. Yeah,
yeah,
that a lot of organizations work with that, and that's awful. That's the thing. I see. Even I reminded myself of that just now.
yeah, yeah. I think too. I think depending on the fight, I think it has to be ref slightly differently. Like for a 5 round UFC world title fight, I think you have to let it go. I think for a couple of reasons. I think even if you are on the losing end, you want a definitive answer. I think, I mean, you got to picture these guys have been, their careers and their lives have all been coming to a climax of this one moment where they've busted their tail for 10 years, right? And a lot of guys, I feel like they, if it's not super definitive, then they feel like it, like that what if, like I was saying, that comes back for like a UFC championship level fight, or really any like high level pro fight. Like I think you have to let it go. Not I think that's really what everyone wants. I think that's what the fighters want. I think that's what the coaches want. I mean, I get like it may not give the best optics to the sport when you see
Yeah,
something like brutal. Yeah, but at the same
yeah,
time, it's
yeah.
like
You know what? Like, I think at some point, like as a sport, we have to stop trying to win over people who don't get it. But anyway, that's a side note. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I'm with you. It's kind of like, well, Sally's soccer mom isn't gonna. She doesn't like it, you know. So why do I care what she thinks? I'm
Yeah,
with you, but
yeah.
it's like in that same breath, though, I do want it to be appealing to the public for better TV deals, more money, like more money for the fighters, so like more involvement from everyone around, and I want it to be safe. So it's like, so it's there's a balance there, absolutely, but like, I mean, I think anytime in that particular situation with you got to go with what the fighters like wishes are, just in my eyes, because they're the ones that
you're
would have.
winning. You're winning me over because now I'm remembering the Gaethje Ferguson fight. A boxing ref would have stopped that way earlier, but so if I look at that fight in itself, I would be like, that could have been stopped before. But then when I think what it was, interim championship belt, I'm like, it got stopped at the proper time for what it was. So that's also very true. That's also very true. And I know we're not like spouting new ideas here, and everyone has their take. I mean, even mine is kind of like, see, I'm kind of like, context is king. I love to say that context is really king. And yeah, for a championship fight, I get it. But then it's kind of like that loss that you might get from those extra hits. At least that reward is kind of worth it. Like I don't think every pro fight deserves that extra time for that 1% chance. I don't think every pro fight, but for championships, for sure.
Like you look at the Dominic Cruz Henry Cejudo fight. I don't know if you've seen that, but like Cruz got dropped.
Yeah.
He landed on his back, was scrambling his way up to get back up to his feet. Did like a wrestling tripod where he like just gets back up to his feet and is eating shots, but is working his way up.
Yeah.
And that is intelligently defending, but that's where it goes back to the ref. They've got such a hard job. He ate like a lot of shots in a row, don't get me wrong. And I don't think it was a horrible stoppage. I don't think it was a good one either, but like he's defending himself by getting up to his feet. And I think even though he was eating shots, like that does count as intelligent defense. And so it's like, I think you got to let it go on. But once again, another 5-round UFC World Championship. Like, there's millions of dollars on the line for these guys. And so I feel like you got to let it go.
I agree that I wasn't a fan of that stoppage. Actually, so see, there you go. But at the same time, I have to say I don't like how Cruz handled it. I don't, because the whole like favorites and alcohol, and unless it happened to be true. But then again, like if you say it in that moment, is anyone going to believe you, even if that was true? And I have to admit, I don't know what let's say was true. Like, what are the steps you can take if that happens to be the case? If you want to, like, can you do a formal complaint on a ref?
I mean, that's kind of the problem. It's like this sport is such in the early stages. There's no path of like these commissions and the like state athletic commissions have like basically a model where like anything like they say really goes. And so like for one, by Dominic Cruz saying that, the jury's already out on Keith Peterson. Like everyone thinks he's horrible. Everyone thinks he's a piece of crap. And he doesn't even get a chance to defend himself, right? So like that was wrong of him, absolutely. But two, like the other issue is that is these commissions have so much like power, like over referees and things of that nature. It's just so crooked, especially in the boxing. It's so crooked, and so like it all comes back to money, sadly.
Yeah, like the McGregor and Mayweather scorecards were just complete garbage.
Yeah,
they were like, oh, they wrote it ahead of time, and the reminder was already written.
Same thing with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. No one thinks that fight was a draw, but
oh my god, that was an amazing fight though.
It was,
yeah.
but yeah, the first one was
like
the State Athletic Commission. I mean, they employed the judges. I mean, and then if they bring a second fight to Las Vegas, they're making so much money. So it's like, I mean, boxing is way more corrupt than like MMA is, but it's just like, come on, it's 2020. Can we get our act together here?
It does make me think though, and I mean, we're already over an hour, so like we have like I don't want to keep you too long, but it does make me think real quick. You know, the one thing I wish there were more draws in MMA because, for example, Volkanovski and Holloway, I would have preferred a draw. If it was to be like that, if
Yeah.
they if they couldn't, I would have. Or you know what? What if instead of three, like everyone thinks more judges better, and like it's difficult. How about four judges? And if it's a split decision, 2-2, you got to draw. How about that? Like, do we always need to have this winner when it's iffy? Like MMA is so hard to judge as well, to be honest, because someone's interpretation of a takedown might be different from someone else. Like how
Right.
they see takedowns, how they see the value of it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a sport. MMA is a sport that, even though I get what you're saying about the that fight shouldn't have been a draw. I get it, but at the same time, I think like maybe MMA needs more draws. Oddly
Yeah.
enough.
I would agree. I would agree. And I think that's why MMA has to have such. You have to have high level judges because there's so much going on. Like there's more going on than any basketball or football. There's so many intricacies, and that's kind of what makes it hard for the Joe Schmo to kind of realize what's happening here. But like, I feel like there it should be judged on like how close are you to finishing the fight, right? So if you have, let's say, like a triangle choke, like sunk in, and it's tight, but you have to have judges that know it's tight and that have trained for years, know what it's like to be in there, know what it's like to be giving the choke to someone else and realizing, hey, this fight is very close to ending. And then say he gets out, right? And lands some close, like a couple jabs or some punches. Like that guy shouldn't win the round just because he won some,
Yeah.
like got some jabs, right? So
Yeah.
like I think and I think too, I think having the judges cage side is outdated. I think having them in a truck with like totally secluded with like
Yeah.
TV monitors exactly that are seeing kind of what we're seeing, see what lands and see what doesn't land. And that way they aren't swayed by the crowd or anything. Because like sometimes like there's like a big slapping body kick, right? And it's like boom, like and it's
Yeah.
super
Blocked it.
loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they block and
Yeah.
like it's a huge slap, and the crowd is like, "Ooh!" I'm like, "Okay, like that's good," but
Yeah.
that doesn't like they're swayed from the crowd there,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I like to see like high level judges, especially because there's so much on the line here for money wise, for career trajectory. Like there's so many. That's what makes fighting special, though. It all boils down to like this months and months of preparation for like that one like moment.
In Thailand and Muay Thai, like if someone kicks and the other blocks with the arm and doesn't move, they don't even count it.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
don't care what sound it made, whatever. Like if you didn't move the guy with your kick, it didn't even count.
yeah, yeah,
With somebody, it damages the arm though. So like I kind of have to choose like, do I just block it square or do I let it move me to hurt the arm less, but it's gonna give a point? That's also interesting. But it's almost like, hey, look, if your kick didn't move the guy, I don't care what sound it made.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. You got to show like effect,
yeah,
and but that's the kind of thing like especially in Nevada, like they'll use boxing judges for MMA fights, and I'm like, well, they don't know anything about like anything, so you're just doing yourself a disservice for that. And I mean, I would love to see some like retired like pros be paid to like judge fights and really have in depth saying why they thought they won after each round while it's fresh. So it's like right after like a round they'll say I think he won because of X, Y, and Z, and then he won because of X, Y, and Z. I do think you need more than three judges. I like to see five, but like that and some retired fighters in there with experience, like I feel like that would do the sport pretty well. Not, I mean, like you have all these Joe. I think part of it is the optics, right? You have these Joe schmoes that have never even been in the gym before that are who knows what kind of health they're in, but it's like like
yeah.
they could just not be like not know anything about what they're trying to do. They don't understand, and so I mean, I think they'd be able to live with the decision more too if it came from a credible source that said, "Hey, I've been there. I've been in your shoes. I've been rocked in a fight, or I've been like in a choke before, and I know what it feels like when you're tired and when someone's trying to kill you. So it's like I feel like at the starting point, that's a good place to start. And so I feel like a lot of fighters would be able to live with that decision either way if they were the judges.
Or to me at least, again, like as we talk about it, like I would want an even amount of judges, because if it's going to be split decision, like, you know what, I'm not mad at draws, because at least it feels like, let's say you got robbed of a win for a draw, it doesn't sting like the other guy would have won and you should have won. Like it's not.
Yeah.
So I think an even amount of judges, if anything, might give us a bit more draws in those moments when it might be a bit more difficult to tell. I think the worry some people have, even though I agree with you, I'm also going to play devil's advocate. Some people are worried that if you have ex fighters, they might have allegiances. But then I guess you can always go like with the law system. Like, look, if this girl has an emotional investment in whatever fighter, they don't judge that one. That it would be that easy. I think.
Yeah, I mean they do that like with kind of judges now, or yeah, with judges now and with referees now. I mean, I know not necessarily in the UFC, but I know a bunch of judges that have had to step away from fights because their teammate was fighting and they couldn't judge that one. I mean, I think you may have to employ 10 judges in one fight night,
Yeah.
and which is fine if they have allegiances to other, but you have to be able to mix and match them to
Yeah.
where they're totally unbiased. So I mean, those are just some things. I think overall the sport's still in a really new place, but I think to really take it over the hump into this next level, I think I think the ESPN deal was great, but I think secondly, I think you got to let the fighters market themselves. Like this new Venum deal, I don't know if you've heard about it.
Yeah, I did.
I don't like that.
No.
I want the fighters to be able to make as much money as possible, and by doing that, you're taking away incredible sponsorship opportunities on shorts, on fight kits, wearing out like those companies that pay for that. One would pay a lot of money, which goes to the fighter and their family, and two, that would be a great marketing opportunity for them to get eyes and really be able to own in on their market of. And so, I mean, it's just kind of frustrating to
What
see.
makes me Yeah, what makes me angry about the Venom, sorry, I interrupted, but it's that now they kind of swoop in, oh, we're going to give more money to Reebok, and they get to look like the good guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like, oh, we're giving more money than them, but you couldn't make more money if we weren't here anyway. So it's
Yeah,
like, well, we don't want you. So it's like, I get the professionalism aspect. I get like you kind of want more of a uniformed way, and I think that is important to give like legitimacy to the sport. Um, Especially like on TV like that. Like if you compare the UFC and put it in the same category as the NFL and NBA, you kind of have to kind of abide by the same rules, so to speak. And I get the uniform thing, but there's got to be a middle ground, like you're saying, that allows like. I mean, some of these fighters can make hundreds of thousands of dollars in sponsorships just from one fight, and I mean to be missing out on that because the company is um, lowballing
yeah.
you is just criminal. I think.
Yeah, maybe a compromise where, and even then, it shouldn't even be. But I get it. Like, you don't want, like, I'm gonna give a really silly example. Like, you don't want to see like this guy ground and pounding the other one, and like maybe in the back of his shorts like Viagra, like. but
Yeah,
but,
I
but at the
get it.
same time, I went with a really silly example. But at the same time, like how about a banner? Like the shorts are uniform, but the guys get to have their banner behind them, like back in the day, or in other
Yeah,
organizations. That
yeah,
or you know what, if you want to do it clean, you want to do it right, like you're the UFC or whatever, you want everyone to be uniform. You look at who was making how much, and you make a fair deal, not a
yeah.
crappy one. Like that would, again, that could be arguable because then someone who is a huge star would get even more. But
Right.
anyway, I don't like it either. I don't know what the but is it that big of a deal that they have different stickers on their shorts? Is it, like,
Really.
it's not.
I mean, I think that's why one you need a fighters union, right? I mean, every other major sport has one beside the UFC. I mean, I think the UFC is giving like 12% of their overall revenue to fighter pay, and that's insane. I mean, there are people fighting for 20 grand on our, like, don't get me started on that. But like, two is like overseas. I don't think everyone should do this, but like overseas, like in Russia, you'll see people get like temporary tattoos of like companies on them, and like temporary advertisements, and
Oh,
then
temporary. Okay, temporary tattoos. Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
yeah, like temporary like across their back,
Yeah.
and like you can't miss that when you're fighting. You know what I mean? You can't miss that. So it's. I mean, I don't think the UFC would even allow that, but like
No, no, because they used to. I think they strictly forbid it actually. Otherwise, they would be doing it. I think
yeah,
they. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like if you want to be on the same level as if you want to be in the same breath as like NBA and NFL, a fighters union is totally necessary. And like, although Dana was super integral in growing the sport in its early stages and was a fantastic marketing genius, um, I think what he's doing now is like these guys are just getting screwed. They're just getting screwed, and I hope to see it improve.
Quick change of subject, but we're talking about sports earlier, and you like how sports,
Yeah.
most of them like don't start with fights, but they end up having fights. At least MMA starts with a fight. Uh,
Yes.
it's kind of funny. I was thinking about that because since I do combat sambo and we have the jacket, I kind of, even though I'm not a fan of hockey, I'm in Canada, I do look at the those ice warriors, the enforcers. And I have techniques of holding the shirt so the one arm is blocked, and they have their own techniques. And a lot of them train now in combat sports, and they do that. It's no longer just like the tough guy sport. They have techniques, and they're on ice.
Yeah.
And I was actually thinking, like, I wonder to what degree a hockey enforcer, let's say it's winter, they're on ice, not even skates, just being on ice, just a slippery surface.
Yeah.
An enforcer against a pro boxer, and they're wearing coats. I think the enforcer wins it.
I think the enforcer is at a huge advantage because he's in his territory. I think. I mean, and it depends on what they're wearing too. I know that's a huge advantage. Like I'm a hockey fan myself,
Yeah.
and obviously I love the fighting. I the Washington Capitals are like the team here in Virginia that I follow, and I've been to a bunch of games. But like I think it is kind of its own art form because you see a lot of times they'll take will take like their jersey and they'll pull it over their head, or they'll like will take the back of it and kind of like snap them down and then like try and uppercut.
Heard
And
about.
I mean, I think it's cool though because it gives a lot of guys that aren't necessarily like um, skilled players. It gives them a way to like really make a lot of money, like and help their family just by doing that. I mean, they aren't even really there to play hockey. They're there to
Yeah.
fight and protect the star player. So if someone goes after the star player or something, it's like they're like, okay, take them, go in there and take them out. You know?
I wonder. I wonder actually a pro fighter, like someone who has pro fighter skills, if they might, unless they're gonna be a champion, I think they might even make more money if they just learn how to skate and go be an enforcer, because hockey money is different, and that's crazy. I used to be against it. I used to be like, oh, that's not what the sport is about. It shouldn't be about fighting. Go watch boxing then. But then I saw the documentary Ice Warriors, and it really opened my eyes as to how the sport becomes if you don't have enforcers, because of
Yeah,
how physical the sport is. It becomes worse because then it's much worse. You have people like being like float, like tackled, and they flip in the air and smash on the ice, and because no one is gonna step in and take care of the bully, it becomes
yeah,
way worse. But it makes me wonder, like, what about a really good fighter who might not be like a champion MMA, so they're like they know what they're like you said the purse is gonna be like. Maybe they should just strap on a pair of skates and become an enforcer.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. I think it's kind of. I think it's hard. I think being able to skate and fight at the same time is probably harder. It's probably harder than we're like making it seem. But like that is, I can honestly see like a pro level, like if their career isn't panning out, they can't get fights or whatever, and they're like, hey, I played hockey in the past, I know how to skate, like let me let me bang, let me just go in there and like protect everybody and collect some heads. Like I can see them totally like I can see that. That'd be kind of cool. That's a good idea actually.
If anyone does it, please please, like, come to my show, be a guest. Like, come on, you got the idea from here. Just be thankful. Come, be like
Yeah,
guest on
yeah,
my show first. My first hockey player. So okay,
yeah,
welcome to Bros MMA show. We talked to a hockey player today.
yeah. we
um,
we started this. We started it.
yeah, we want some like revenue, like your first check at least. Tim and I
Exactly.
want some income for the idea,
Ten
or
percent.
10%. Um, so okay. So just as this final thought, since we're on the subject matter, and we have to conclude at some point. We've been way over an hour. Did you see that judo or Brazilian jiu-jitsu? I don't know, judo throw, like those two hockey players. One grabbed the other one and did like this judo throw on the ice, and the guy didn't get back up.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he like landed on his like back of his neck or something. Yeah, that's violent. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I don't think that's cool, even amongst enforcers. Like the idea is they're supposed to kind of like people don't understand that, and I didn't. But the enforcer is supposed to actually keep the violence down by being the guys going up front to meet it.
Yeah.
But when you do that, you might paralyze the guy. That's on ice, man. Like a judo throw on ice. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah. That ice cannot be soft.
MMA on ice.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like
No.
a death waiting to happen. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, okay, Tim. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you very much for coming to the show. And where can people see you online?
You can follow me at Tim Daly, Daly 34 on Instagram. I'm on Facebook too. So Tim Daly 34, come give me a follow. And really appreciate it, Bruno. You do a great job, kind of giving us guys a voice and covering the sport that you love. So we appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, man. It's really been fun. Thanks for coming.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good one.